All right, welcome back. Another week, Rush Hour Pod. I'm T Dub. This is Justin. Last week we talked about growth strategies, the basics of growth, and what you could do to kick off. I thought I thought we'd continue down that path a little bit. We've talked about ideas are kind of a dime a dozen. Everybody has great ideas. If the question is really how do you execute them? So I thought we'd start with that for many people in terms of entrepreneurship, getting started. Hey, I've got this great idea. Now what? Like you tell your friends, you get this feeling, you get some energy. What do you do next? I thought both of us have gone from 0 to 1. I thought it'd be a great sort of episode to talk about what do you do with that great idea? You think you have something,
Yeah.
but do you?
No, I love that. What I want to do first, I want to shout us out real quick that this is episode 20.
Oh,
So
yeah.
yeah, which is which
Yeah,
is pretty
20.
cool that we've
2-0.
that we're up to 2-0. So maybe some of you have been following us during that during that time. But we'll shout out my co-host here because
Yeah, let's go.
we created a bunch of content which we said we were gonna do. So that's awesome. Yeah. So to your point, right? Like you have an idea. We may or may not have said this on the podcast before, but right, like 90%, 10% is having the idea. The 90%, maybe it's even higher than that, is
Yeah,
executing on it.
right.
Ideas are a dime a dozen. So if you're going into creating a new product or service, so really anything, I think some of these are principles that you can leverage as you're trying to put something out in the world to get the right feedback to know if you actually have something. And so I'll put together a few bullets on this, and then Tito can kind of opine on if he agrees or has anything to kind of add on
Yeah,
as well. So
exciting.
the first thing, just kind of starting out, taking a step back, is to realize that in my experience, a single product, at least at the beginning, cannot be all things to all people. It's really important that kind of before you go out in the market, you're not saying, "Hey, I'm doing, I had this idea for a sports app, so I'm going to go after all people that are interested in sports." That's too broad for kind of the initial idea. What you want to do is create something that's called a user persona, which is basically a way to think about your ideal customer. And you want to be as narrowly defined as possible. So instead of saying, "Oh, I want to go after someone who's interested in sports," you want to say, "Oh, I want to go after someone who's interested in basketball, that's between 18 and 24, that lives in an urban city and is checking ESPN every day." Right? The more narrowly defined that you can do that, the better target you'll be. And because you're going to want to market to that persona. And you also, what you want to do is ideally say, "Okay, if that's who I'm focused on, how do I do 100 interviews with people who are in this segment, just to really make sure that I'm addressing the right pain point? How do I survey them as well to get qualitative and quantitative data?" And when you do this really well, at least for that initial group, you could create some super evangelists that will help you with your product roadmap, features, increase your K factor, which is basically how many more people users invite once you bring them onto the platform. And this practice is kind of lost, among people who aren't, prior entrepreneurs or haven't kind of had the battle scars like TW and I have in this space, because you try to think of this huge total addressable market. And a lot of times you're like, "Oh, well, that demographic, if I'm going after this smaller segment, it's too small." But over serving this group, again, creates evangelists that then can create some adjacent interest groups, and you can grow from there. Best example of that would be Amazon, right? We know them for the huge e-commerce and conglomerate that they are today, but they started out selling books, and they got really, really good at doing that, and created, a really specific audience around it, and were able to grow from there. So that's kind of like the first piece, which is how do you think about very narrowly defining who you're going after, and how do you talk to them and make sure you're actually serving the pain point that you think there's a business behind.
Yeah, it's eBay started with a place to sell Pez dispensers, right? So it doesn't take much. You just need one little thing, and like you said, you do it well, and it's easier to scale. There's I think a bunch of books about doing things that don't scale in order to scale, and I think this is definitely along those lines.
Yeah. Yeah, I found this like very helpful. Entrepreneurs reaching out for kind of advice about how to start a startup, or really, validating that they're on the right path. It's a good initial approach to actually see, if something will resonate, and going to the people within that demographic. Um, the second piece, and this is a little more down funnel. So this is, hey, okay, now I want to test out this idea, right? So how do I do that? There's something that's called, it's either a fake door test or a painted door test. And essentially what you're doing is you're creating a very, very simple splash page, like a website presence that has a call to action, maybe the name of your app, a call, whatever product it is, a call to action on, hey, this is going to help you. I don't know. What's a potential idea, T Dub? Help me out here with what a potential idea could be, just
I
as an
don't.
example.
I don't know if you said sports and basketball. We could just go down the
Yeah, yeah.
content of sports and basketball.
Right.
Maybe
So
content curation.
yeah, maybe content curation of the best basketball and sports content that's out there. You have an input that allows people to enter their email address, or if you even want to test something more down funnel, you could have them say, and we're going to do a newsletter, and it's only like $1 to subscribe. We're going to launch this whenever. And what you do is you run paid ads leveraging like Facebook or TikTok ads, wherever you kind of feel most comfortable to run ads to this platform. And so what is this going to do? It's going to allow you to do a few things. One, you can kind of test your messaging to see how well that resonates with the demo. You're also going to see down funnel actions like, can I actually acquire, very, very, very basic information. Can I get someone's name and email address? At a minimum for this product that I think deserves to exist in the market. And maybe even more down funnel, if you ultimately want to sell some kind of product, can I get people to sign up, for some type of wait list, or to enter their credit card information, or to say, hey, once this is live, you're going to be the first people to get it. This is really validating, particularly if you're creating like some type of technology product, in this case, maybe like some kind of sports related app where we have content, because there's a huge cost that is there's a huge cost associated with like product, app development and engineering, et
Yeah.
cetera. If you don't have a technical background, maybe you're hiring, an offshore company. A lot of people say, Justin, I want to create an app. I'm paying this much money, for a development shop to make the app. And I say, whoa, don't do that. Try to see if there's actually like resonance behind an idea, and then
Yes.
build the technology after. So this approach, and you can set up multiple websites, et cetera, but this approach is really helpful to, again, go down the path of validating the idea.
Yeah, I love that because I mean, we talked about it before. Apps, the average person uses 5 apps a day, and they have like 80 or 90 apps on their device. So for you to break into that five, like if you think your app is great, and it may very well be an amazing app, it is hard to get someone in the habit of using it every day. So I definitely wouldn't start there because, as you and I know, there's a whole nother world of app download to install to usage
Mm-hmm.
that you got to break before even getting to your product, right? You got the app store, you got
100%.
screenshots, you've got video, you've got download. Do they have enough storage? And then they get in. It's a lot. So I completely agree. I always say start with a mobile web interface. Can you get people from your social media platforms into your mobile web experience quickly and efficiently? And yeah, like you said, yeah, you can do your funnel metrics in terms of impression to click through to giving some sort of information to start. That'll tell you a lot, right? Like, what would you say would be a good sort of like click through click through rate from impression to click through?
I think it kind of depends. It depends on the product, and it depends on the channel, and there are a few
Right.
other things. But let's say you're doing like, Facebook ads or Google ads or something like that. I think if you're getting, and you keep me honest on this in terms of what you've seen, like you're getting like 1 to 3%, like
Yeah.
click
It's
throughs.
a, it's a
That's
low
pretty
no
good.
number.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's pretty low. Now, what you want to get is a higher percentage of those people actually install, and then
Right.
as high of a percentage of those folks who register. Think of a registration as people who not only installed the app, but they've made an account. You obviously
Right.
want those to be higher. But if you're getting off of some ads, 1 3%, if you could get higher than that, that's even better. That's typically pretty good. And if you're looking to kind of confirm what that data looks like, depending on the category you're in, it's a pretty easy Google search to find out, within your category, what's a good click through rate relative to running
Yeah,
ads.
yeah, and you should know by cost as well, right? Like if you're going to go very narrow in your audience, it's going to be expensive, and at that cost, you better be converting at a high percent. You better be right about your user profile, which you'll find out very
Right.
quickly, right? Because you're not going to spend thousands of dollars on this test. You're going to quickly learn what are the numbers and does it scale, and then how does it look in terms of cost
Yeah.
per lead, cost per click, cost per impression. Kind of you get the whole waterfall, and then you can go from there,
Yeah.
right?
Exactly. And this again, this is like an entire kind of process to think through as you're doing this, to not only help you narrowly define who you're going after, but also save money, right? Like these are
Yeah.
things that are kind of hard learned by making a lot of mistakes. At least I'm going to say
Yes,
that I made a lot of mistakes on my end and trying
for
to
sure.
try to do this stuff. So this is like a process relative to all of the years of experience that has been most helpful. Whether working on entrepreneurial idea or being one of the early leaders at a new company, kind of going to from zero to one. So, we talked about, okay, a product can't be all things to all people. You need to figure out what your user persona is. You need to figure out like who you actually want to target, do the market research. The second piece is around kind of, the fake door test. And there are ways that you don't need to spend a lot of money to drive traffic, and you can measure and see, where your conversion rates are relative to your peers, and if you have something there. So you've gotten people into your app or product. Again, let's keep going with this sports app theme, where people are creating content there. Another really important thing once you're kind of actually driving people into the product is something called first time user experience, or those who are in the industry call it FTUI. But simply put, it's really important to understand a user's initial interaction with your product, because this provides the basis for other downstream engagement. So imagine this. Imagine that you have 100 users, right? And let's say, just for email, you're getting 10 into the app. So um, your cost is like, a dollar per install. But imagine that zero of those people actually register and create an account. Even though you have a relatively low cost per install, you're actually getting any users, right? You're getting that initial interest, but you're not getting any users. So what you want to do with first time user experience is think of every part of that user's journey as kind of a conversion funnel, and you want to try to convert as many of those people as possible. The retention piece is a little down the line, but at least in that first interaction, you want people to be kind of getting the value out of your product. So this is where, depending on your technical ability or what kind of product you made, you want to be really tight with whoever is running the product piece to understand, when you're running these campaigns and different cohorts, et cetera, how are you measuring the number of people who actually create accounts. And so this can get super specific. You can think about, hey, how many screens am I showing when the user first goes in the app in terms of a tutorial? Should I have this, or should I send people right into the experience? Should I force people to log in or not, right? Should I allow people to kind of use the product without creating an account, or should I force them to create an account right in the beginning? Do they get some type of reward for joining as well? All the kind of questions that you would ask based off of the type of app that you're trying to build. But you can drive a lot of people into an app, have a really successful marketing campaign, but if you can't create them to install, and then if you can't get them to install and then register or create an account in your app, then all those efforts could aren't you know you're not driving the right type of user into the app, or there's
Right.
something missing on the product.
And I feel like a lot of people don't think about this step. They just think, hey, I got this thing. Everyone's going to want it. This is going to be super useful. And if that may be true, but if you don't get this initial part right, people will never find its usefulness, as you said, right? Because you get to it, you look at it, you're gone. It's out of sight, out of mind, right? Like you do almost need to build, so you say how to gamify this thing so that it's like, all right, I need your email address. First step, I need your email address. You got to the site, you like the thing, you see the thing, but I need your email address. And then after that, after I get your email address, how do I get you back into the app? How do I get you back in to see the usefulness of the product? So it's almost like baby steps with this entire thing, right? It's like first get them to see the ad. After they see the ad, how do I get them to click on the ad? Once they click on the ad, then they got to see the product, and then see the product, and they gotta give the email address, and then you got to come
Mhm.
back. It's a lot. It's a lot to ask in
It's
today's day and age.
100%,
It
100%. And
is.
to that point, and this is something that we talk about, I think we've talked about a number of different episodes, which is all products. And again, reverting in this case back to, some sports app, this in the consumer space as an example, you're not just competing with other sports apps. You're competing with Netflix. You're competing with
Yep.
times people spend with friends and family. You're competing with, the time they spend at work. You're competing with them watching YouTube videos or going on Twitch, etc. People's attention spans are very, very fleeting. And so you have to try to be super focused on like what is this experience and why does this product make sense and how is it differentiated and how it's going to steal share of time away from these other platforms because
Right.
you're competing against all different types of products across all other spaces in this current environment.
And I think what you said early on about the user profile, while that's so important, is over serving that user base. So if you like in this case, if it's basketball and it's a younger demo, then you're serving that audience is like it's created custom for them, and they can't get this elsewhere. So otherwise, you'll just go get it on Twitter, or YouTube, or TNT, or wherever else. So you're hopefully creating something that is you're providing some sort of product differentiation, where you talk about, hey, I'm the only one that can do this or do it in this way. So that's why you need to come to this site or this app or whatever it is you're building to get that.
Yep.
Right. So
Yep.
if you think about it in terms like you've got to get people to understand that throughout this flow.
Exactly, and hopefully you made it very dead simple to understand kind of what the product is about and get them through and get that information. That is incredibly important. Kind of depends on what your strategy is. Like to use an example of a company that we worked at, right? Like for Twitch, you at least for a desktop web, you don't need to have an account to watch
Right.
content, and that is based on like a very thoughtful strategy that Twitch had relative to their demographic, where they're trying to get you to try the product, test it out, and then get you to create an account. There are other products where you have to go in and create an account right away. There are even some products where they won't even let you get past kind of the initial tutorial unless you
Yeah.
create an app. And typically those are because they need tremendous user density. So they're trying to get you to invite other friends or help build out an audience so that when you go into the experience, you're not like alone. Typically those are kind of like double-sided marketplace apps, which we can kind of talk about down the line. But after we've gotten through this kind of first-time user experience, so let's say you're actually getting people through the funnel, whether or not you have a login or not, you've gotten them into your app. I think the next really important piece is making sure, ideally in that first session, or if not, kind of the first few days, that people have a magic moment within the product. And that is where think of the magic moment as where the value of the experience is clearly understood by the user, which ideally also unlocks longer term retention. And to use kind of an example, one of the more famous kind of magic moments that's out there within, the consumer app space, which is one we played in for a long time. Facebook's magic moment for user retention was when a user had 7 friends within their first 10 days of signing up. So I don't know if this is still the what they use in terms of like what they're optimizing for when they're acquiring users, but the company found that when users reach this moment or this milestone, it significantly increased the likelihood that they would continue to engage with on the platform as well as invite friends. And all companies should have at least one hero metric. There may be some kind of sub metrics that kind of ladder up, that they're working back from, that has an exponential impact on retention and just keeps people kind of understanding what the
Right.
value of the product is.
Right. At Twitch, it moved around a bunch, but at one point it was watching for 5 minutes. Right. Like we need you to watch for 5 minutes, and that doesn't sound like a lot, but when you're talking about essentially the micro micro content where people are watching TikToks and things for 10 to 15 seconds, 5 minutes is a long time. And that was the magic moment for Twitch. 7 friends for Facebook. I'm not sure what it is on Twitter. I think it's a number of engagements overall.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I
What
think that's the magic
what was
moment
it
for
at? Do
them.
you remember what it was at Tag? Was it like the number of matches that you had in a certain amount of time, or do
Yeah,
you remember?
it was just getting that first engagement. So it was
Mm-hmm.
whether a match or a message or whatever it was to get them in. And at, like we had that game pets too, right? It was like if you went into any of those, that was what we were hoping for, right? Because then you're
Yep.
deep enough into the app, where a lot of things naturally happen with pings and emails and other messages and things like that start kicking off.
Totally.
But like if you just come on and look, it wasn't nearly as powerful.
Yep. And so so that like that's kind of like a process that can listen. There's a lot of ways to skin a cat, right? And so I don't think we're trying to say we have a monopoly on like how this is done or the best way to do it.
Right.
But I think this is a thoughtful way of doing it in terms of making sure you're going after the right people, not spending a ton of money, actually making sure that you're getting benefit for your marketing efforts in terms of down funnel stuff, and then making sure there's long term value for the users that are coming in. That's like a general framework. But wait, what do you do after this? You're done, right? No.
No, that's
You're not
it's
done.
just getting started.
This is kind of like the beginning and just getting started,
Yeah.
but thinking of it as an iterative process, thinking of it as a process, thinking of it as a funnel, and trying to increase conversions on every part of that and be systematic, is something that is very useful within the space that we're in. And again, in this example of creating some type of consumer app product is probably a
Yeah.
good
I mean,
good
and that
example.
I will saying consumer app is already it makes me a little nervous for this product. Um, but maybe it's more like if you were selling t-shirt, like t-shirts is a great example. Everybody's like, got this great t-shirt idea. I'm going to put it up and it's going to do wonders. But like you would similarly need to do what we discussed, right? You get the t-shirt, you put it up on a site. You're not done. Like, how do you get people to that shirt and to make a purchase or to find get their information to sell them the shirt? Like, where how do you do this? And similarly, imagine that flow to understand. Hey, if I just put this shirt up, if I don't have a store, just to get more information, I'll put an email address to get info for the shirt. Can I drive people to it? Will they give me their email address? Do I actually have a shirt that people are interested in? Things like that. Um, all of those fit perfectly with this little framework.
Totally. And you have a lot of great experience with that through LRA
Yes.
and what you set up there on the apparel side.
Yeah, the shirt. I mean, the shirt business. It is. Yeah, I mean, people have always said we don't need more T-shirts in T-shirt businesses in the world, but like people buy shirts. Like it's just nothing. It's like a low hanging fruit kind of business, right? Like people are like, that's funny. I'm gonna get it either for me or a friend. And you can really still come up with a really solid t-shirt brand that maybe not be your mainstream of income, but I've advised for companies that have launched a shirt. Somehow Justin Bieber got their hands on it, turned into $500,000 in business a year. One person got a hold of the shirt and it took off. So, it's still doable. It is still doable today if you have something really creative and something. And like you said, it's not. There's a million ways to do it, and you could skip a lot of these steps, and you could do it. But this sort of tried and true method of like test, learn, iterate, test, learn, iterate over and over and over just has worked. I mean, it's basically the Silicon Valley in a nutshell. Like, this is how all of
Yeah.
these startups have really got going. So if you can do that on a smaller scale for your little business, I really think it's kind of a proven method to help you understand what works and what doesn't.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting that you call it kind of the Silicon Valley method because I think a lot of that isn't born out of just, oh, there's a way people do things out here that's just kind of known and it's not
Right.
necessarily hard earned, et cetera. It's based off of a lot of companies that started off with very little resources that had to
Yeah.
figure out ways to get to product market fit, you know, with small teams with not a big budget, and this was kind of the most efficient and effective way to accomplish that, and that's why it's kind of become a blueprint in some ways for uh, how companies are formed out here and how you get started with new ideas.
And I'd love to hear your opinion on this, but today with all of the quote unquote apps and social media and honestly distractions, is it now harder or easier for someone to start and get into this 0 to 1 sort of business?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. I would say it depends on what type of, let's say it's just an app, right? It depends on what type of app you're trying to create. I want to distinguish between like a venture backed, app
Right.
and growth trajectory and what a lifestyle. Let's talk about the lifestyle first. If you're in some anime niche that is underserved, and you create like new kind of stories, like new anime comic or story, etc. And you know that within this niche, it's really there's not a lot of content that exists here, and you create it in app form, and people can pay $5 a month, for this app, and you can get enough people that you're creating 100, you can get driving $100,000 in revenue from that, and you're just serving this niche. Then yeah, I think if you have the right insights and are willing to work hard and fail a lot and figure it out, but your insight is correct, then you could make a really successful lifestyle business right now. Still, I think that relative to the no code tools that are out there and ability to kind of just hustle and create relationships with people who are in the communities and get it and create a nice lifestyle business, I think that definitely exists. For venture backable businesses where you want to be in the top 5 to 10 of your category and have tremendous scale and growth and millions of users, I think it is very, very difficult, nigh impossible at this time
Right.
to do it successfully. And that's primarily because there's so much competition in the stores, and frankly, these companies, you have to think of these companies that are public companies who are monetizing through ads and through being able to put sponsored posts in the app store, et cetera, incentivize people to spend a lot of money in order to get eyeballs on their product. It necessarily means that it's incredibly competitive, and you have to spend a lot of money typically to even if you do that, there's still a very small chance of success
Right.
at a venture scale where you're trying to create a company that's generating hundreds, if not ultimately billions of dollars in value. So I think that latter case is way more difficult. The former on lifestyle businesses, not to make it seem trite, not like it's, oh, that's easy. It's not necessarily easy, but it's way more achievable than the venture back model.
Yeah, I kind of go back and forth with this. I think you totally nailed it. If you do it on a niche level, today is easier, right? Because it seems like you can find your sort of niche. Um, I wouldn't say easier, but like relatively, you can sort of figure out who you're serving, serve them up, and see if you've got something. It's the scaling part today that
Mm-hmm.
seems much more difficult because, like we talked about, average person only uses 5 apps, and if you're trying to serve everyone, you end up basically serving nobody because it is so hard to quickly develop something that matches a generic sort of broad range of topics. So you almost need to go super niche and serve them well, and then decide if you want to scale this thing and go all in
Yeah.
to make it a bigger business, right? I think side hustle today definitely easier. Creating the next Facebook, infinitely harder today, I think, than it's ever been.
Infinitely harder. And I know, and I wonder if it would resonate with our younger viewers, but I feel like people with apps just generally are kind of just over it. Like they're looking
Yeah,
for experience, they're looking for kind of new experiences, and there haven't been anything that's so breakout that it's kind of worth
yeah,
spending the time on these other platforms. So it's multiple headwinds. It's the headwinds of just it being way more competitive now. millions of apps in the App Store and Play Store, whereas before we were first starting out, still a lot of apps, but it wasn't nearly the scale that it is now. And then in terms of consumer trends and behaviors, that people are also kind of gravitating away toward what exists now because they're trying to spend less time on their phone.
Yeah, I'm curious where we're going to go next with this. It seems like we're going to go somewhere. I just don't. We're just in a really tenuous time in terms of what's next. I know TikTok. I mean, TikTok's been out a long time now, and
Mm-hmm.
that's here to stay. Like people thought, oh, that's just a little dancing app. Remember that? Now it's a real vehicle and channel now that has cracked that top five for
Mm-hmm.
many people.
Yep.
Um, but we'll see what's next.
Yeah. Well, and maybe to kind of round out this conversation, kind of two things in the TikTok example that I think resonate relative to what we're talking about. One is that TikTok started out as Musically, which was just an app of people kind of
Yep.
doing fun dances on their on their phone, and they're able to really capture that segment, create a tremendous amount of evangelists and tractions and scale, and then they were able to branch out to more just kind of video, fun short form video content. But
Right.
that's not what they started out for. They started as an app where people were dancing on it, doing dances to different videos, right? You see kind of how that app evolved over time. The other thing is, if you think about like the growth of TikTok specifically, and I'm not sure how much Musically was spending on ads, but I have it on, you know, pretty good authority that TikTok spends like hundreds of millions of dollars a year on
Yeah.
paid advertising, right? And that's like the
Yeah.
biggest platform out there. So that's who you're competing with. You're competing with the company
Yeah.
that not only kind of has product market fit, but also spends literally hundreds of millions of dollars
Yeah.
to acquire users still, and user acquisition teams that are probably 3, 4, 500 people, or what, however large it is.
And yeah, I remember
Yeah.
when they kicked off in their initial push to become the next generation's app, they spent billions, like with a B, on sort of content and pushing people to use the app and getting in front of high schoolers across the globe. So you're talking, it's a lot. It is very hard to not only create it but then to replicate it and scale it. Not to say it can't be done, but it is pretty difficult today. With all the tools that are out there, side hustle seems like a nice way to start. Not set your sights on I'm taking over the next TikTok, and see where it takes you. Right? Like that's
Mhm.
I would say that's an incredible way to get started.
Yeah, I think a goal of saying, "Hey, how do I make 500 more bucks a month on
Yeah.
this idea? And how do I take some of these strategies to put something out there to validate the idea and see if it works?" And then if you get crazy traction and it catches fire and you think that you have a much more scalable business, like
Yeah.
that's great. But what you'll get is something tangible in terms of actual money in, and then also you're gonna have some missteps and you're gonna learn a ton. And that's
Yeah.
that's the that's the best way to really understand how to put these principles into practice.
Yeah, that's awesome. Because when we started Locker Room Access, I think in the initial merch drop we made, we sold out of everything that we made, so it felt really like a cheat code. But then it got to the point where it was like, all right, how can we build something that is going to help this community? It wasn't about like, hey, I'm going to churn and burn a ton of merch and basically, monetize the audience as much as possible. It became like, hey, how do we really serve them? How do we build them something that's going to help them ultimately, and help the things that we love, which is obviously community and sport and team and all that. So like having a mindset that wasn't about maximizing dollar. It was like, how do I build a community and help my community? Really helped us gain an incredible amount of traction, and stickiness, as you can imagine, right? Because then people aren't like, oh, you guys are just selling me stuff and walking away. You guys are really contributing to
Mhm.
and adding to the thing that I love, which
Yeah,
resonates really well.
especially for something that's a commodity like apparel. Like you can kind of
Yeah,
buy it anywhere. You can buy t-shirts at Target.
yeah,
You could buy t-shirts at Marshalls. You could buy them online. You could buy them probably from your next door neighbor, right? But
yeah,
what is the
totally.
emotional resonance? What is a community piece? How do you think about like what your product market fit is in your segment, and that is all really important to
Totally.
achieve success within a niche.
And today, when we try to launch a shirt, as an example for people, today when we try to launch a shirt, we try to give all the funds to NIL, which is a student athlete. So, kid hits a game winner, we put that kid on the shirt, make some slogan, all the sales go straight to him, right? So we don't take a penny. We're just using our um, platform as a way for him to monetize, which then ultimately feels good for everybody in the community. They're saying, hey, these, for us, there's no harm. It's just a little bit of work, but it's like incredibly beneficial for the student athlete. And then the fans feel good about making that purchase because they know all the proceeds are going straight to the student athlete. And it's a win-win.
Mm-hmm.
And that has helped us a lot. Trying to think about things like that because, hey, when we do other campaigns, we run other things. People are like, this company always is looking out. So there's less. Their guard is definitely not, I want to say down, but they'll think about in terms of like, hey, these people put a lot into it. I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt, and I'm going to subscribe to their services. I'm going to do something else. I'm going to promote them a little more because of the things I've seen in the past, and that's gone a long way. So if you're thinking about it in terms of your business and what you're trying to do, sometimes it makes sense just to say, hey, I'm going to cut my losses. I'm just going to help my community, and that goes a long way.
I totally agree. I think what you're building is long term value for the brand and kind of long term success, like even financial success by the line, by just doing what's right
Right.
and
Exactly.
coming from a mindset of altruism as opposed to just like a money grab. Because I'm sure there are a number of companies that are just like selling shirts as a money grab, not necessarily contributing anything back, and then those kind of fall off after
Right.
when kind of the next best thing comes. But if you create a real community around a mission and a sense of values, then that's a lot stickier.
Yeah, for sure. Want to jump into current events? What do you think?
Yeah, let's end with some current events. So obviously we got to talk about the markets a bit, which have been
Yes.
insane. And I would
Yes.
keep it real, man. I have tried not to look at my brokerage accounts over the last
Agreed.
14 days because I know it's going to look a little funky. But what is your how are you feeling about this period?
It's scary. Like, I have a lot of my sort of retirement and income tied up in a bunch of different ETFs. Now, it's a cyclical thing, right? They go up, they go down. I've been
Mhm.
sort of averaging in it for many, many years now, so it doesn't feel that bad. But seeing just the number drop Friday and then Monday again, it's disheartening. It just is. Like you can't help yourself but to think, oh, are we going to go to zero? Like we know we're not, but then
Yeah,
there is a little concern. Like what's
yeah.
happening? What's next? Like what shoe is going to drop in um, where are we going to see this thing? Should I sell everything and then buy it back later? All those things kind of go through your head, but ultimately, I kind of sat on it, and then today it rebounded a little bit. We'll see what tomorrow brings, but it's scary. We've talked about it. It's scary
Mhm.
times. Like
Yeah.
it's just a lot of unknowns right now.
And I remember like the first time I had a really scary drop, I think it was the end of 2018 where the market corrected like 20%, it corrected like
Yeah.
20% or something like that, like
Right.
right at the end of the year. And I was
Right.
like, oh my God, this can happen. And I remember calling my dad up, who's kind of very involved in the markets. And he said, listen, this is just the game, man. This is just how
Yeah.
it goes. The market is going to correct. And frankly, it's a buying time. If you
Yeah.
believe in some of these companies, then you should be buying. So
Right.
having gone through a few of these drops, it doesn't feel good. You see, the after hours open, it looks like it's going to start like literally 1,000 points down, like -5% for the Nasdaq, and it didn't do as poorly as that. But you look at that, you're like, oh my God, this is going to be a really huge gut punch. But
Scary.
for
Yeah.
me, I invest in ETFs. I have a long time horizon. I have sectors that I feel confident in. I also generally feel confident in because most of my investing is within the U.S. Like overall confidence in the U.S.
Yeah.
economy and its stats for the world and everything else. And if that's the case, and these companies over 10 years, 10, 15 years will typically do about 10% a year, then you got to just imagine it's going to be right around that average, and this is good buying time. So that's been helpful for me, but it's definitely stressful to see those numbers in real time, or at the end of
Yes.
the day, you look at your account, you're like, oh man, that's
Yeah.
not where I want it to end up.
Yeah, if you're down 10% on a day, that's just crazy to think about because you surely don't go up 10% a day.
No.
But to see it drop is it's pretty alarming. But yeah, I try to be even keel about it all. But I definitely look at it like, man, this is just horrifying. Like,
Yeah.
dude, and it's scary to like think I have some cash left in. I'm gonna go in again because you just don't know. Like,
Hmm.
I know Warren Buffett's thing is be aggressive when everyone's scared, but low key, I was scared and I didn't do
Oh
it.
yeah.
So
Every
yeah,
time I'm like, yeah, we're good. This stuff happens, and I look, and I'm just saying,
yeah,
oh.
yeah. I mean, part of me is like, I should just pull everything out and just cut my losses.
Well, it might be
Yeah,
opportunity for you to put some more in cash. Like
yeah,
if you're feeling like you're closer to like a retirement period than me. It's like for me, I'm just
yeah.
you
You've
know
got plenty of time
I got a little more time.
to pull
I got
through.
some more time, so I'm like, maybe this is more of a buying opportunity. But I think you know 6-7 years from now, I'll probably want to have some more money,
Yeah,
in cash. Although all my money is ultimately going to go down the drain for my kids' school. So
schooling. Yeah. Well,
I just
that's another
yeah, it's never really
topic
go. It's always
for
going to be
another
kind of
day.
rough for me. Yeah.
What
Um,
about anything else in the news? I texted you Zuckerberg's his
yeah,
latest
man.
Supreme. He was on. Oh, for those that don't know, I'll put it up on the screen here. Zuck in a Supreme shirt that said "Supreme drop coming soon," and it had Zuckerberg in his little box logo tee. Which he is he jumping shark or is he coming into
I
his own? Like, what are your thoughts?
I love the Zuckerberg rebrand, not because I necessarily think it's working that well, but I just like that he's willing to do anything to try to continue to make his business successful as an entrepreneur, and you got to respect that.
Yeah,
Specifically on the Supreme thing, I think he was even thinking about becoming like a minority shareholder, like in the like he was maybe trying to like invest in the brand or something like that, which
yeah.
maybe
I know they
limits the
sold
Supreme.
recently. Yeah, they sold
Yeah,
from the Louis Vuitton sold it and they lost what half a bill on it.
yeah, yeah. But like you know, Facebook has what 3 billion users. Is incredible
Right,
scale and kind of everybody's on it, but among younger cohorts, it's not considered cool. So I think
right.
he's trying to feel more relatable to the younger demo.
Do you think he's
And
actually trying, or is it because
oh
of
yeah, man, a hundred
it's the
percent.
billions of dollars that helps
No,
him
no, no,
give him the
no,
free time to do these things? No,
nah, man. He's.
okay,
I think he's his PR team has told him, listen, if you're trying to like Gen Z in particular, they're all about. Well, it's interesting because they are all about authenticity. I wonder if I mean he has to just kind of just be this person now, but
yeah,
they're all about at least putting yourself out there. They want to understand the
right,
people who are behind the brands, right? So if you're Zuck, what is the image that you want to put out to this younger demo? And
right,
before him, robot, deadpan, Caesar cut, not necessarily very stylish. That probably wasn't working that well.
yeah.
But now he's got more relaxed vibe. He's out of Lake Tahoe. You know,
With a beer,
on the boat,
windsurfing, yeah, yeah,
windsurfing with the American flag. I mean, it's like a whole vibe. It's kind of like one of those. If I was a billionaire, how would I want to just be living every day type of
right,
vibes? And so
right.
I kind of rock with that. I don't know, is that him living his most authentic self? Only he could really answer that. But he's definitely trying to like put himself out there in a way that just has a lot more content out there
Yeah,
that's trying to resonate, and I think it's just a very interesting.
yeah. I saw an interview where someone asked him, "Is this the renaissance of Zuckerberg?" And his comment was, "No, I just don't care anymore what people think. I'm like kind of like what you said. He's just like, hey, I'm just putting myself out there, and people can deal with it however they want. So I'd like to think this is who he is, or who he's maybe turning into,
Yeah,
and are evolving into. Same thing happened to Bezos too, right? He was the nerdy,
Mm-hmm.
stiff-looking guy, and now he's like all buff and you know tanned and different. Has just a different vibe. And part of me just thinks, you know, you become more established. You've obviously got some bread now. You've got, you're established. You're the guy. You're him, and that confidence exudes a little more of a, I don't know, cooler aura. That's the best way I could put it. But I
Yeah.
guess Bill Gates never did it. Bill Gates was creep all the way through, like to the end, right?
Yeah,
Like I don't know.
he hasn't quite made the change on the
No,
he wasn't going completely left
yeah,
in terms of the
yeah.
brand and everything. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Like, who do you feel like you'd be closest to in terms of how you would be positioning yourself if you just had all the money?
If you
Like,
had
what would your vibe
if
be
you had
like?
a billionaire, probably not the Zuck route. It'd probably be
Mhm.
closer to the Bezos.
Yeah.
Just not giving an F about anything makes way more sense. I definitely would not be holding a beer on a Tahoe in the back of a boat with the American flag. Like that's not even. Yeah. What about you?
No, it's interesting, man. I mean, if you got that kind of money, if you got that kind of money, I feel like it's hard to just be totally kind of, low key and
Normal?
not
Yeah,
really in the
you
public
can't.
eye. But I always like to think of myself. Okay, I wonder if this example will resonate with you. But I always think about the group, the Neptunes. And you're familiar, like the
Yeah.
Neptunes had Pharrell, they had Chad,
Yep.
that other brother. I forget his name. The other dude is Neptunes. But I always felt like I'd want to be like Chad, where like Chad could go to Turks and Caicos and
Yeah.
chill, and
Nobody
people probably
knows.
won't know who he is, and
Yeah.
just like live his best life. Whereas
Incognito.
Pharrell, he can be. So I would want to be as close to that as possible. I think because I feel like just being in the public eye is very kind of exhausting,
Yeah.
and maybe not, at least for me, maybe not as fulfilling relative to my life stage right now. So probably closer to like a Bezos type of vibe where he's not in the news all the time doing stuff. Like if he is in the news, like he bought a new $300 million boat.
Yeah.
And that's just ridiculous that he has that much money, but not, him, like doing some crazy surfing or other stuff.
Yeah. But I mean, Zuckerberg definitely has a vibe of, I don't even know what the right term is, but like, you know, going off the grid and like he's got some hippie vibes to him that,
Yeah.
just harder for me personally to relate to. Um, but I get it. He's out there like that. I mean, I don't even think it's just a money thing. It's like they they've set out to build something like impactful and they've done it. So I think there's a
Mhm.
lot of confidence that comes with that. Like, hey, I set out to build this thing and I built it. It's done what I worked really hard to do, regardless of the
Mhm.
money part. I think in
Yeah.
terms of their legacy it left on the world, they probably feel much more secure. Hence them coming out and being not really caring about what people think because they're like, hey, I did what I wanted to do. And the rest, whatever, I don't care anymore. So,
Yeah.
I mean, to me, Zuckerberg it's incredible how far he's come. Like when I think about his path and from Facebook to a little dating thing to what it is today, it's really impressive. It
Yeah.
is
I agree.
very impressive. I mean,
I
not
agree.
that Bezos is any different, similar, selling books. Amazon.com when they first came out, everybody thought it was ridiculous, and now look at it.
Mhm.
Like no one's
And
questioning it now.
exactly, and just maybe end things with Zuck. I remember there was that period of time where Apple, made all those privacy changes and lost
Yep,
IDFA, and everybody was like, "Oh God,
they're
Facebook is
done.
just going to die. They're done now." And I remember doing a LinkedIn post. I said, be careful. Don't count Zuck out, man. This
Yeah.
cat is he just wins." So he's kind of shown that over time. He's
I
just an
mean,
incredible entrepreneur. So
on that note, we've had obviously we talked about Bill Gates, right? In terms of like moguls of the industry, you got
hmm
Bezos, you've got Zuck, you've got
hmm
Elon.
hmm
What's I mean, is there a Gen Z sort of version younger than Gen Z, Gen Alpha? That's
Hmm.
coming up that's gonna join these ranks? Do you think it's I feel like it's gonna look very different.
Yeah.
Mr. Beast, perhaps, or is he going to get canceled
Yeah, I
here? Or,
think Mr. Beast, actually, that's a really good example. I think like a Mr. Beast. I think that, there's this new wave of creators and creator economy and these kind of outsized
right,
personas that happen that literally have built a brand around themselves as opposed to like some software or some
right,
product. That's really interesting. So I think I would agree with you that, maybe some of the billionaires come out of people who execute those models really well with Mr. Beast maybe being the best example, with Logan Paul being a great example,
yeah,
with Prime, with other emerging examples. Think of like a Kai
yeah,
Sinat
Kai,
and this whole kind of streaming wave. To that end, and I know we've gone a bit longer today, but this is fun. Uh, there was an article that came out today about Pitbull doing a 5-year deal with FIU, which I think is like Florida International
yep,
University, to
I
get
saw that.
naming rights for
Yeah,
Pitbull Stadium, and I think
right,
he's
I
going to
saw that.
do some concerts there. I think he's going to have his alcohol brand, which name is escaping me right now, but be kind of like the primary brand within the stadium. Doing some other things, and I think that is really interesting, and that model will become more prominent as you have these individuals who have built kind of these brands around
Personal
themselves
brands
and
that it, yeah,
have done so well that now they're going to try to like integrate that more into activations and campaigns or tactics or however you call them that are more similar to what you would see like a traditional brand do. And I hadn't even thought about that as like a model, but that's really like what if Beyonce some stadium in Houston,
right.
right? Like University of Houston or whatever, and lend her name Beyonce Stadium or whatever what that could be. I mean, that's pretty powerful. Frankly, Taylor Swift should probably do that. Taylor Swift and Beyonce should probably be doing stuff like that
No, it makes
to
a ton of
take
sense. You
advantage. Yeah.
capture you capture a market and really own that market, and you're tied to that with your branding. And as you move, they move, and it's vice versa. It's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
I like Mr. Beast coming up. I know he's been in the news a lot recently with some issues with. Oh, I guess he fired one of his staff for
Mm-hmm.
you know I don't even want to know being canceled for inappropriate behavior in the past. Is
Mm-hmm.
this something that is you think going to continue to prop up in these like sort of influencer worlds where people's sort of skeletons in the closet come out and then now everyone reads it and reacts and whether they make a big deal of it or not. It's kind
Yeah.
of hard. It's kind of hard to read through if you're kind of like on the peripherals, kind of just reading the headlines. It's really hard to understand what's actually happening. You got to really
Yeah.
dig in and care.
Mm-hmm.
Um, what are your thoughts?
I think it will continue to happen. I think that just like any maybe the most close maybe the like the space that is kind of most similar in terms of how these things can change up in careers is like politics.
Yeah,
So yeah, it can ruin a career or it can be a nothing burger, but I think that what's required is that the people who are the kind of main faces of these brands like the Kai or Mr. Beast, 'cause I think something happened with Kai's cameraman recently as well, something
oh
similar,
really?
kind of
Okay,
like weird
wow,
stuff, has been you got to just disavow it and be like that behavior is
unacceptable. Right,
unacceptable from the
right,
beginning, and then think about hopefully kind of to one of the earlier points you were making, which is around how much trust have you built in your community and how much like value you've accrued there, and if you've done the right thing, think of like Dr. Disrespect even as an example as well, then they're going to either rock with you or not. So you have to just
right,
continue. You have to like try to do the right thing as quickly as possible, and then also have built up enough you know, of a relationship with you and your audience that they're willing to either forgive you or be like, well, that's just like one bad apple on the tree,
right.
and that's going to happen, and that person didn't have anything,
That
specifically to do with
on
it.
that note, I would say this next generation seems to me much more forgiving than probably my generation.
Hmm.
You look at someone like Sketch, right? That comes out and he was had his OnlyFans and he was doing, um, a bunch of stuff that was, I wouldn't say questionable, but just something he wasn't proud of. Um, and he seems to have recovered fairly well. People forgave him fairly quickly, and he's still, in the mix. I don't know what you know becomes of
I
that, but
Yeah, I would
to
push
me,
back
it's
on you on that only because I feel like that isn't because he did anything wrong. That's just because of who he
Right.
is in his kind of like,
Persona.
self-presentation and just living in his truth. And that's something that came out, and person basically outed him who did that. And like, that's not cool. And, you know, I think that generation is just way more accepting. Now, if he had done something like, inappropriate that wasn't with consensual adults, or, something more similar, kind of the Mr. Beast example that we talked about, I don't think they would necessarily be more
Yeah.
forgiving than any
Yeah.
other generation. But I think around, sexual identity and people's interests and how they relate to the world and how they're able to show up, absolutely, Gen Z,
Yeah.
thank God for them. They're a
Yeah.
lot better on that front than
I mean,
my generation.
even just the look of the quote unquote influencers today. You look back in the 70s, 80s, 90s, it was very, very superficial look, like Madonna. Like Madonna, Michael Jackson. It was a very look, like supermodel type look that
Mm-hmm.
was out there. Very few broke through out of that they didn't have that look. But today, you look around, like Mr. Beast and Sketch and Kai and Lil Yachty, and they're very, I wouldn't say like normal, but like they aren't, you know, Greek gods, so
Mm-hmm.
to speak, and they do very well. I think that's a very refreshing thing, that it's not based on you got to have the Hollywood model looks and blonde blue eyes kind of thing. It's to me very refreshing. I don't know
No,
what
I
your take
agree.
is on it.
100%. I agree that people showing up with authenticity and just being good people and just making good content,
Yeah,
regardless of, how they're viewed in a traditional kind of Hollywood
right.
sense in terms of, attractiveness and, prior background, et cetera, that it is very refreshing. It's cool to be, for that maybe to be the world, that our kids will live in. That being said, just way more people's lives are out there. So
Yeah,
there can
facts.
be drawbacks,
Facts.
in terms of gaining an audience and having to feel like you always have to be on. Like, I wonder what's going to happen to all these creators when they're, you know, maybe they'll get burned out sooner or later, but like where they just want to kind of move on to the next thing or not be
Yeah.
creating content. Like,
No,
uh,
totally. Yeah, where does it go? What's the next generation for them? What's
yeah.
the next step for a Kai? Right? Like he's literally his whole world is online every second. Like I don't know where you go from there. Like it's
Well, maybe it's just creating a digital twin, and then they just,
yeah,
the AI, like the models, they just got
yeah.
to take all of your images and content, etc., and they just
You
create infinite
control it.
content. Yeah,
Yeah, that's pretty scary. But anyways, we're at an hour. Appreciate your
yeah,
time. This is
yeah,
amazing. We'll
man.
cut it up. As everybody, as you're watching through these little clips and snippets, let us know what you like and subscribe. We're here to help. You've got all our bios and stuff in our description, so take a look. Let us know if there's anything you need, and we're out. Appreciate your time.
All right, man. Always fun. Later.
Can you click stop or do I? Oh, there it
I
is.
think you. Yeah, I think you do.